turret with some details put in, mainly railings and some photo etch from Edward. Okay, let's begin. The color, which is a base color, is SC02, and this is from the Mr. Color. It's a lacquer, so it dries from the inside out, and it dries pretty fast. It's a matte color, and I have diluted it, pre-diluted it in the bottle to what I need for airbrushing. Okay, next I'm going to lighten up the color. And what I have now is I'm going to pour back most of the paint into the old paint jar. In fact, almost all of it. And I'm going to just add a little bit of this thing called Sail Color. It's number 45. So it's over here, Sail Color. And this is also pretty much diluted in the bottle, in the jar. So there you have Sail Color, and I'm gonna back blast it again, and you can see that the color becomes kind of like a beige. At this level of thinness, it's still a little bit too thick, and so I'm gonna dilute it out a little bit with just a regular Mr. Color thinner. Maybe half and half. Lots of folks talk about what percentage of thinning. I don't like to do that because it depends on how thin your paint is in the first place. So what I do is I go based on the bubbles in the paint cup when I do a back blast like this. So now that's pretty thin. Let me test that out on my cloth here. Pull back. Okay, you can see that the color is starting to go on a variance. I'm gonna reduce the pressure in my compressor. So that, oops, that was the compressor kicking in. So that it doesn't come out too thick. If it does, then it'll totally spoil the effect. So now start with a little bit on this off the side. You can just spray a little bit on your thumb to see how it goes on. Okay, here we go. Focus. And I'm just covering, not the whole thing, but the way the armor modelers do it is to cover the big areas. So in between, oops, that's a bit too much. The trick of this is to do it really lightly, very light touch, and you can see the comparison between the original kit part here and the demonstration piece. So you can see there's a subtle difference between the two. So I'm gonna go now and do my kit part. So spray a little bit on my thumb, get the paint going. We don't want too much, so we must know how much paint to put on. There you go. And that is done. That's done. Okay, next step is to do the oil wash. Okay, we're ready to do our oil wash. What you need is some turpentine, a palette, and some burnt umber, and you also need a very fine brush. So let's get started. Okay, what you need to do is to put some of that oil paint, not a whole lot, just about a 1/4 inch or less um, of the oil paint in your mixing palette, and pour some turpentine or spirit in there, and I'll just take a little dab of the oil paint and then let it run off the tip of my brush. There you go. Alright, and then working with my spare piece. Come on, focus. Okay, so you just tap it and let the oil paint run and flow. Okay, and over the top as well. The oil paint will go onto the recesses. You don't want to wash the entire thing, because then it'll look really weird. What I see and what you guys see is kind of different because of a perspective, and you know, I'm looking from my eyes and you guys are looking through the lens of a camera, so it's going to be a little bit different, but yeah. And I'm an old guy too, so you know, my hands aren't all that steady. But if you look at that, so I'm just letting the paint flow at the recesses. Okay. The thing about the Gunze paint is that it's easy to work with, and it's what we call a hot paint, which means when you apply it, then it's really difficult to come off. It's pretty robust. So I'm gonna do my special piece now, the actual kit piece. Don't be afraid to wick up anything that you overdo. Or you can wick it to the next section if you want. It's not so easy to do this together with the camera in front of me, and it's just sitting in between my face and the model piece, so it's not exactly easy to do this. That's a bit too much, so what I do is just dilute that out with my turpentine. I can do a full wash actually, Just get some clean turpentine on that, and that'll work. It appears that my brush wasn't totally clean from a previous use, and so there's some metal pigments on there which don't look great. Well, that's basically done. Let's wait for that to dry out, and you'll be able to take a look and see the difference. I don't quite like the bits of metallic paint which found their way on there. Okay, so we'll take some still shots and show you how it looks, both side by side. Okay, what happened after the wash went on was that the color became a little bit darker. So what I'll do is go in again with my tan mix. Put some on my thumb. Make sure it flows correct. Don't want a lot of that paint going on, just a squidge, and go in between the areas. Doesn't have to be too much, just a little in between. And I'll show that on the one without the railings. Okay, and on the sides as well. See, these were sprayed in a kind of random like pattern, so these are the parts after the respray. You can look and see that the contrast is really strong now, and that's because I have highlighted a little bit. And then we go to the last bit, which is putting on some pastel chalks. Okay, for the pastels, I'm a lazy guy, so I'm just using, MIG products, light rust, and industrial city dirt. And it's not a lot of work to do. Make sure that you have a clean brush. You don't use the same brush that you used for your wash, because that would contain a lot of residue, and it would still be wet, I bet, because we don't have any patience. So I'll just put it on my thumb there, and then again with my test piece, just brush it in a vertical motion. You don't see much of anything. You wouldn't see much of a difference, especially for a Japanese Navy ship with industrial dirt, but it's there, and you don't notice it straight off, but your eyes will certainly pick it up as a subtle difference. Okay, and the rust. Okay, the rust is like a a yellow color. Oof. I'm not a professional at this, so bear with me. And break up the pigments. Again, I'm using my thumb as a palette. Now, rust on chips don't go everywhere, and you don't want it to be all over the place, so be careful with how much you use. Just a little bit here and there. Use your fingers and alright, only at certain corners. Now, the reason why I've got a test piece is because I'm not so good at this, and I gotta make sure that, you know, I don't mess up on the actual part itself. So, look at that. That is way overdone. So, lesson number 2. We're gonna do that on the actual part, only on the bottom bits. There. Just a little bit of a highlight, and that's all you need. You don't need the rust to be everywhere. Remember, if she's a rust bucket, she wouldn't be at sea. And that's all she wrote. I'll finish up with a larger brush just to blend everything in so that it's not too overt. And just a bit of highlighting. And she's done. Okay, so that's it for today.